Good morning to everyone, and please be very welcome to this first webinar of this short series, which is being developed under Pillar G of the Water for All Partnership. My name is Mario Ballesteros. I'm from the Water Institute here in Spain, and we are co-organizing this event with Water Europe and in collaboration with the European project, which is called BIOFIN, that we will know a bit more about in the following minutes. So it's a pleasure to welcome you all to this event, particularly to all the members of the Water-Oriented Living Labs network, and also to the Knowledge Hub experts that are joining us today. And well, about the aim of this short series of 2 webinars that we are starting today, the idea is to explore how the economic valuation approaches and financial instruments can support the development, structuring, and financing of nature-positive and water-related projects and actions. And today's session, it's going to be the first webinar. It is titled From Economic Valuation to Willingness to Pay on Water-Related Investments. And about the second webinar that is going to take place in early June. You will have news about that in the following days. We'll send you the information with the final date and the agenda by mail, as we did for this first event. Also, well, for today's agenda, as you can see in the screen, we'll have John Garvey from the University of Limerick presenting the BIOFIN project at the beginning of the session. And then we'll continue with a couple of presentations by Fredrik Carlson from the University of Gothenburg. Then we have a presentation by Samuel Cheng of Queen's University of Belfast. Then we have a presentation by Mauro Mancero of the University of Padua. And at the end of the presentations, we'll have an open discussion with all of you, where we'll be able to exchange your vision or your reflections about the things that we have talked during the event with the speakers. And at the very end of this open discussion, we'll have some final remarks from Andrea Rubini of Water Europe as a Pillar D leaders of Water for All to close and to finalize the event. So as I said, you are all very welcome to the event. And now I will hand over to John Garvey. John, please connect your mic and let me know if you can directly share your screen. And if not, I will try to give you permission.
Yeah, I think you might need to give me permission there, Mario.
Okay, I will do it.
Thanks.
I've already given you permission as moderator. Let me know if you can share your screen.
Okay. Thank you so much, Mario. Appreciate it, and appreciate all the work yourself and Francisco have done in organizing this. I'll just give a very short overview of our own project, BIOFIN. We're a 3-year research and innovation action, really focused on how to unlock mainstream finance for the protection and restoration of biodiversity. So our project ends in December of this year. My own background is within financial economics, and I work at the University of Limerick in Ireland. So, I think everybody on the call is quite familiar with some of the challenges that exist around redirecting financial flows away from negative activities, economic activities in terms of pollution and so on, and trying to redirect financial flows towards nature positive types of activities and nature-based solutions more specifically. And this is the domain within which we're trying to work. So BIOFIN is very much an interdisciplinary project across ecology, environmental economics, data science, and so on. So we're looking at different approaches to capturing data and trying to integrate that data within different decision-making scenarios, whether that's in bank lending, fund management, corporate finance, how public enterprises redirect their investments, and so on. So within finance, there's a huge amount of interest and attention historically on the costs associated with transactions, how transactions report their activities in different settings like corporate disclosures or financial institutions disclosures. And we pay a lot of attention to that within our project. And we also try and learn a huge amount from existing pilots that exist across different settings. So within our project then, we've got 13 partners. These partners, as I say, range across different disciplines within academia, and we also include partners from different sectors like the food sector. We have the Institute of Bankers as well, which are a large training organization, really integrated into European bank training networks and so on. So within our project then, an aspect of what we're doing is, as I said, focusing on how to use data in a different way within specific financial decision-making scenarios. Part of that is looking at the existing regulation around disclosures, the definitions of what is sustainable or nature positive activity, how they need to be adjusted. And we're also looking at technologies that can help information sharing in different settings. So at the moment, we're designing a dashboard which can be used in a lending setting or can be used to better match nature positive projects to help appraise them in a more streamlined way and identify and monitor what the outcomes from those activities can be. So we use these across different what we call learning sites. So we have learning sites spread across Europe within the agricultural domain, within urban decision scenarios, and also within kind of water utility kind of settings. So within Ireland then, we've got two learning sites. Both of these are relatively large-scale European LIFE projects, which are piloting different ways to design results-based payment schemes and identify different ways in which we can achieve landscape-level protection and restoration activities. We have learning sites in Brazil that look at how nature-based solutions can be governed effectively, how they can help protect population health, how private finance can be used to better protect local communities, and so on. And we have other learning sites within Italy that are looking at public-private contracting and data sharing, business model design to redirect financial flows, and so on, and other sites that are kind of looking at credits, biodiversity credits, and looking at corporate preferences, and so on. And then we've two urban ones, one in Sarajevo around air quality, and another pilot restoration project looking at eelgrass meadows in an urban environment. So that's, it's a very quick snapshot of what BIOFIN is working on. Our main focus is thinking about how these pilots can inform, the financial regulation, the need for better data sharing to minimize transaction costs and scale up these initiatives so that they can be adopted more broadly. So I'll just pass over to the next speaker, if that's okay.
Yeah, thank you, John. Frederick, you're already a moderator, so please try to share your screen and tell us if everything is working okay for you.
Seems like everything is working. Let me start this. So I'm going to talk about two things. One a little bit more briefly, and then in details about the particular case study. So I'm just mainly starting this sort of to get you to be on the sort of common level when it comes to the terminology that we will use, etc. Maybe I should also say I'm at University of Gothenburg and I'm an environmental economist, so I will have an environmental economist perspective when I'm talking. And this, for example, means that when I think about economic evaluation, I primarily think about cost-benefit analysis and pricing taxing decisions, because I'm primarily concerned sort of with the things that are not regulated, with the things that are not at the market. I'll specify that a little bit later exactly what I mean. But the stuff that we're going to present is certainly also going to be valuable and interesting for individual investment decisions by private firms or by organizations, where in particular you want to take the environmental impact into consideration. But most of the things that I have in mind is sort of primarily geared maybe at the two first steps, or two first areas, I should say. And the main issue that we're going to talk about today is the end of this chain that I put up here. That we want to go from a nature-based solution, the effects that the nature-based solution has on the ecosystem, identifying who is benefiting from these ecosystem services, and put an economic value on these effects that the beneficiaries have. So you immediately, for example, see here that the perspective is going to be anthropocentric. We're going to look at how individuals and firms are valuing the ecosystem services. So we're going to have sort of an anthropocentric view on this. Second, we're going to use the concept of use, non-use, and option values. And use values are values that have a beneficiary that is directly benefiting from the ecosystem service. They're consuming the ecosystem service and therefore have a direct use value. Food provision from ecosystems, for example. Then we will have non-use values that are not directly linked to the direct use of the ecosystem. And many of these non-use values are going to be what we call non-market values. There is no market for it. This is going to be important. And in particular, specifically when you do economic valuation, the most important question here is who is the beneficiary, or who are the beneficiaries? How are they affected by your investment project, your nature-based solution? And how are they affected, and how are we going to put up an economic value on this? And the key core thing that we're going to talk about today is the last part of this. How do we assign an economic value to these? But you, of course, have this whole pathway. You should have that always in the back of your mind. Here are a few examples of non-use, non-market values. They could, to some extent, exist on the market, but in any case, the important thing is to point out that many ecosystem services are services that affect many people. They are public goods. They are quite often not priced, and that's going to be an important part of this. Why am I saying this? Well, I'm saying that because the standard valuation toolbox that we have is to study behavior at the markets and get information and estimates of values through behavior at market. So we would use price at markets, we would use cost of producing goods, etc., as a way to get economic values. And this is definitely the standard toolbox in economic evaluation. We will use this today, as you will see in the case studies coming, but we will also have to rely on other methods because quite often there will not be markets available. And when there are no markets available, you would have to rely on other types of methods. And these are the words that you will hear today. We will rely on what we call revealed preference methods, stated preference methods, production function methods, and benefit transfer. And in general, I would say that, and I'll talk a little bit more in detail exactly what each of these methods are, but in general, I would say that the methods that you decide to use is partly driven about what type of data you have access to, but it's also largely driven about the amount of money that you have to do this economic evaluation, because some of these methods are definitely more costly than others. Finally, they're also driven by the decision on what type of values you want to capture. And in essence, if you want to capture non-use values, you would have to rely on stated preference methods or benefit transfer methods. So let me just talk a little bit and I'll go fairly quickly through some of these. So when it comes to revealed preference methods, the idea is to actually identify a market for your good, but it's not a direct market. Instead, we look at nearby markets. And I think the easiest way to understand this is to talk a little bit about the hedonic pricing method. The idea with this method is that while you have ecosystem services that are not at the market, these ecosystem services can affect another market, the housing market, and the value of land, the value of houses. So if you live in a house where there is a big risk of flooding, then it's very likely that the value of the land or the value of the house is lower. And this effect on the value of your house is a measure of the economic value of reducing flood risk. That's basically the core idea of this method, to study effects on other markets. It requires quite detailed data. It requires you to carefully think about how to identify the effects, but it's certainly a doable way to handle it. This method, and the travel cost method as well, would primarily then capture values that are expressed through this related markets. Data preference is very different. Here, instead of looking at a closely related market, we learn from survey responses. So basically, we ask people about their economic value. And you will hear the word continued evaluation today. You might not hear the word choice experiment, but they are the two core stated preference methods. They both have in common that we essentially do survey, and we ask people to act in a survey situation. The main advantage compared to all the other methods that we're going to see today is that they can capture these non-use values, these values that are not at the market. The main and obvious drawback of these methods is that they are survey responses. And being survey responses, that means that they are very susceptible to what we call hypothetical bias. You can answer in a way in the survey, but when push comes to shove, you might not actually act in the way that you said in the survey. We certainly have ways to deal with that and to identify it, but I just want to be clear in saying that this is a clear limitation of the stated preference survey approach. Production function and benefit transfer. Well, production function is primarily a method that we use to study, for example, effects on agricultural production. So nutrient retention, groundwater recharge, etc. What is the effect on agricultural production? So this is a way to sort of measure, in particular, then firm or agricultural effects of these ecosystem services. Benefit transfer is a very different thing. Benefit transfer is relying on that people have done studies before, and you learn from previous studies to your setting. It is a whole science in itself, and we will see applications to this today. But of course, as you can imagine, this is the cheapest way to do this, since you are relying on that people have actually studied this before. Today, you will see three applications of these methods, and I will begin with coastal restoration in Malmö, the eelgrass restoration project. That is going to primarily rely on stated preference methods, and the focus is going to be on biodiversity restoration in in a harbor situation. Then we will look at Loughney, sorry for pronunciation, freshwater lake and ecosystem services in that. The focus there will also be on use and non-use values. You will see applications of benefit transfer and on abatement cost methods. And finally, we will have a river basin application in Italy, where it's restoration of this ecosystem, and you will see applications of several different types of economic valuation approaches. I will just now continue, and I will present the case study 1. Case study 1 is in Malmö, Sweden. It's in the southern parts of Sweden, and in this project, we are particularly interested in comparing different types of restoration approaches. Now, Malmö port area was an area that looked very nice 100 years ago, but then there was industrial exploitation of this port area with a lot of industries, and these industries basically destroyed the environment there. The seabed is basically dead. But now the industry has moved out and been closed and moved to other countries, and there is a residential development in the area. And as part of that residential development, but also as part of the general development, there are thoughts about restoring this area. And in particular, the idea is to restore this by letting seagrass, and a particular type of seagrass called eelgrass, to regenerate in this area. And eelgrass can be important, or is important for biodiversity because it provides shelter and food. It can improve the water quality by reducing the erosion and capturing nitrogen. And it actually also has some potential carbon sequestration effects. We are primarily interested in the biodiversity effects in this study, but I thought I would mention the other parts as well. So you can restore this area. And basically what you do when you restore is that you sand cap the seabed, and you basically then cover in all the pollutants in the sediment. And once you've done that, it is possible for eelgrass to grow and then to bring back the seabed back to pre-industry level. But one, this is costly, so you need to fund this somehow. But two is that you can do this in different ways. You can do this by active restoration, which will be more costly, or you can do it by rewilding or natural recovery. In both of these, you would need to do the sand capping, right? And then it's a choice on what you decide to do. And the third part is these are largely non-visible, non-use values. These are at the seabed, and it's not that sort of people will be able to enjoy this to a very large extent. So these are to a large extent non-use values. What we did, or what we do, is that we do a stated preference survey, basically asking ordinary citizens about their views on these restoration projects. And the word I'm going to use is going to be WTP, willingness to pay. How much people are willing to sacrifice in terms of money to have the restoration project in place. And what we're going to do, and I'm going to show you this, is we're going to create a scenario situation in a survey, and then we're going to ask people to express their views in terms of payment of the local tax. And our idea is then that the payment of the local tax is a reflection of the value of the project. The survey has 3 scenarios, and this is the important part here. We have 3 different scenarios, and the main difference between these 3 different scenarios is the number of years it takes for a successful restoration. So it's not sort of rewilding versus planting seeds. That's the important thing. The important thing is the number of years it takes before you have a successful restoration. These years that I have here, 2, 10, and 18, are sort of the best estimates that we could get from the marine biologists that we are working together with. These values are, of course, in reality uncertain. You can never guarantee that you will have a 2-year successful restoration period if you plant seeds. There are always uncertainties. And then we ask respondents about their attitudes and then their willingness to pay for these 3 different scenarios. When you do this type of studies, you need to inform respondents about what this is, because many of the respondents that we send the survey to would not have heard about eelgrass before. Some will, and some will not have. So the service that we send out to respondents contains information about what eelgrass is and why it is potentially important for biodiversity. Then we introduce these projects, the potential projects of restoring the seabed to restore biodiversity in this area. And then finally, we ask them to express their willingness to pay to fund this type of project. And the example that I'm showing you here is the restoration for natural recovery, results after 18 years. So I'm showing you all this, not because you should read it in detail, but for you to get a sense of, it's pretty heavy information that we're giving these respondents. We're putting a lot of faith in sort of respondents reading this information and then making an informed decision based on this. So it's not an easy way. It's a lot of numbers. It's a lot of information that we're giving to the respondents. And I think it's always important to be aware of that. So we did this for the 3 different projects, right? 18 years, 10 years, and 2 years. So they all answered three of these questions. We sent this out to around 1,800 respondents in the county of Skåne, where the city of Malmö is located in the southern part of Sweden. We are particularly interested in Malmö, the capital of this county. And we did a quota sampling with respect to age, education, and gender in this county. And the sample that we have is representative with respect to age, education, and gender. It is a representative online panel, which is important to be aware of. It's an online panel that has its pros and cons. So it's people who have volunteered to be part of this online panel that received this survey. Results, and I'm just going to give you snapshots. I mean, we have for many different types of results. I'll just give you a sense of what you can get from this type of study. This is the main results. It's presented in a descriptive way. These are in Swedish kronas, and I'm doing that because I'm going to have the cost as well. So if you want this in euro, basically divide by 10 to get it in euros. So what we have here going from the left to right is the mean and median willingness to pay for the different scenarios. So let me focus on the medians. That goes from 600 to 410 to 208. What they're saying is that the median respondent is willing to pay 600 kronas, so 60 euros, to have active restoration that it will take 2 years to restore biodiversity. While the median for the 18 years, the longest, is 208, so substantially lower than for the 2 year. And as you can see, and this is common in this type of studies, is that the mean estimates are considerably higher. Almost 2,000, so 200 euros for the fastest scenario, and around 50 euros for the slowest scenario. And in the survey, around 20% say, I'm not willing to pay anything at all. I'm not supporting this scenario or these scenarios. We quite often ask people, why are you responding in the way you're doing? And I just wanted to show and highlight this, that the focus of many of the respondents is animals have the right to exist, future generations, it's important to increase biodiversity. These are all sort of, it's not that I will be able to enjoy the environment, etc. The focus is on sort of general attitudes towards biodiversity. Those are the fundamental reasons why people are supporting this. Those that say no, why are they primarily say no? Well, they say things like, well, the ones that cost this should pay. I'm not going to pay for this. We shouldn't increase taxes. We should have the tax revenues that we have today, and we should fund the improvements through that. And then the third is I cannot afford to pay anything. Now, these values that I have on this slide here, these values can be used and compared with what would each of these three projects cost. And working again with someone that has been doing this, we have pretty detailed information about what the cost would be for these three different types of projects. And mind you, all of them have in common that you need a sand cap, okay? And the sand capping is estimated to cost 122 million Swedish krona, so 12 million euros. And then for the seeds and the shoots, you would need to add a planting cost. And as you can see, the planting cost is quite small compared to the sort of the fixed cost of sand capping. These costs that I have in the total cost column can then be compared with the aggregate willingness to pay. And this aggregate willingness to pay that I have here is what we call a conservative measure. It's conservative in two ways. We have used the median estimates, and we have focused on people living in Malmö City, not the whole county. And if you do that and you compare the willingness to pay with the cost, you can see that there are two things one can say here. That natural recovery actually have a benefit cost ratio that is lower than 1. So total costs are higher than the aggregate willingness to pay. And 2, the benefit cost ratio increases with going from natural to the fastest recovery. And the 2 other recovery methods have a benefit cost ratio that is higher than 1, so they would be sort of socially beneficial. And the benefit cost ratio for the fastest recovery is close to 2, so it's certainly socially beneficial. 2 more slides, and then I'll leave to the next speaker. What you can also do with this type of data is that you can get information on who is saying what. And in general, what we find in this study is that the willingness to pay, or the values that the restoration projects bring, are higher among younger respondents, higher among female, higher among university educated, and it's higher among those that actively use the area and that like to spend leisure time close to the water. And it's a pretty high distance decay as well. Those that live close to the city, close to the harbor, in particular those then that live in the city of Malmö, have a substantially higher willingness to pay than other respondents. Not discussion, key takeaway is that what we have shown in this project is that for an urban blue nature-based solution as a restoration project, we have found that people who live in this area have a substantial value of these restoration projects. These values are primarily non-use values. And comparing this with the cost estimates, a restoration project that does this fairly quickly would be socially beneficial. This was the last slide from me, so I'm going to stop share, and then I'm going to hand over. I think it's Samuel who is the next presenter. I'm not 100% sure. I'll shut up anyhow. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much, Fredrik. That was really insightful. Indeed, some questions already arised in the chat, and we will be tackling this during the open discussion at the end. of the presentations. So now it's time for Samuel Cheng from Queen's University of Belfast. Samuel, let us know if you can share your screen and turn on your camera.
Yeah,
There we go.
Okay, so hi everyone. I'm Samuel Cheng. I'm a research fellow in Queen's University Belfast, and today I'm going to present a project of the estimating the total economic value of Lough Neagh, the UK and Ireland's largest freshwater lake. And besides me and my team, Frederick and Francisco are also our external collaborators of the manuscript. Okay, so let me introduce the profile of Lough Neagh here first. So as I have said, it is the largest lake in the UK and the Ireland, which spanned 382 kilometers squares, and its catchment areas actually drills 47% of the territory of Northern Ireland and provide 41% of drinking waters to the local population. So it's around more than 800,000 people, and the lake is currently suffers from recurrent harmful algal bloom in every summer since 2023, which is very notable. If you look at the pictures, the water is so green during the harmful algal bloom. And Lough Neagh is also have a very high ecological value, which is designated as special protection area, special conservation area, area of special scientific interest, and natural research, reserves. So you can see that on this graph, this is taken from Lough Neagh, and don't be fooled that it's not it's not grass or plants. It's actually water filled with blue algae. So you can see that how severe the harmful algal bloom is since 2023. So as Frederick has introduced the methods we are using in this project, that benefit transfer and abatement cost. So I'm going to show you what exactly we are doing. So in benefit transfer, there are different kinds of transfer method. So we actually estimate the total economic value by using different kinds of transfer method, including point estimate value transfer, mean value transfer, and meta-analysis functional transfer. And by obtaining these estimates, then we can form a sampling distribution, and we find our result by using the sample mean and also convert it as an asset value using net present value method. So on the other hand, we also trying to calculate the total abatement cost by looking at how the relationship between the flow weighted mean concentration for total phosphorus in the lake, and how it can be changed by the reduction in farm gate phosphorus balance, so that we can calculate how much effort of phosphorus production, phosphorus reduction has to be in order to mitigate the harmful algal bloom from happening. And we obtain literature, the value of the marginal abatement cost of dairy farm for in Northern Ireland for phosphorus phosphorus surpluses, and we also multiply the per hectare abatement cost by area of the agricultural land use within the catchment, and compute the total abatement cost, which is the minimum amount of money needed to negate the impact of harmful algal blooms from happening. So as we have introduced before, that the rationale of benefit transfer is to apply value estimates derived from existing studies at a study site to a new policy site. So as I have mentioned, we used 3 kinds of benefit transfer method. For point estimate transfer, we transfer the value from one existing study, and for mean transfer, we obtained values from existing literature and use the mean or central measures of central tendency as our transfer value. And in meta-analysis function transfer, we used the values obtained from existing literature and then we construct statistical model and generate a predicted value to transfer into our context. So in assets value, we use the social discounting schedule that UK government is using. So it assumed that there is the income stream will be steady for 100 years with decreasing discounting rate along the 100 years period. So the data we use for point transfer, we obtained the estimates from various official sources for each ecosystem services. And for mean and meta-analysis transfer, we actually obtained the meta-analysis by Mataguchi et al. 2024, who they used a subset of ecosystem surface valuation database, and within it, there are 28 fresh water habitat studies and 10 studies is about lakes in the 28. In total, there are 160 observations. So on the other hand, for the data source of the abatement cost, we look at Jordan et al. 2024 for the information about the phosphorus balances and concentration, and we also obtained the shadow price, which can be used as a marginal abatement cost for phosphorus reduction in dairy farm in the literature. So as we move to the results, that we can characterize different kinds of ecosystem services into those who would be largely affected by the harmful algae bloom, such as water purification, fishery, recreation, and biodiversity. And on the other hand, for ecosystem services that are not really altered by the severity of the harmful algae bloom, and we can and our point estimates is around is range from 346 million pounds to 403 million pounds per year. And if we switch to the results for the mean transfer, then in per hectare, they show a very similar results from our point estimates, and which provides for the lakes, the total economic value would be 326 million pounds per year. And so if we look, if if we look at our sample and trying to characterize the economic value based on ecosystem services, then although there are some extreme value because of only one data point for the for the climate regulation services, and we can see that the estimate for different kinds of ecosystem service range from 79 million to 639 million pounds per year. So we move to the results from the meta-analysis function transfer. So our model generate adapt to assume our valuation work on 2023 because this is the upper limit of our sample range. So we can see that things will change if we assume that our study was done in a later year, and these are the conditions that we have set to produce the predicted value from our meta-analysis function. And for the ecosystem services, we choose maintenance of biodiversity or existence bequest values for our calculation, and we can see that the total value of log N is range from around 112 millions to 341 millions. So there are lots of numbers here, and what we actually do is to put it into sample distribution and compute the mean. So our refined estimate is around 9,200 pounds per hectare, which convert in to the catchment level as 366 million pounds per year. So using the net present value conversion, we have discussed the asset values worth around 10.6 million pounds, and on the other hand, for the abatement cost, it costs 21.5 million pounds per year. So we at the graph, you can see that these are the distribution for the sample mean of the European sample and the global sample from our sample data set, and you can see that each kind of benefit transfer method estimates are actually quite close to the mean of these two distributions. So our takeaway here in this study is that log N provides significant value in terms of providing ecosystem services per year, and in terms of asset value, and the per hectare value of log N is actually quite close to the global or European average. And if we calculate the benefit cost ratio, the implied ratio is range from 5.4 to 7, so there are very high potential gain from a social perspective. And our extension of this work is to apply this valuation framework to another site, for example, in wine valued, so that we can establish a framework for a pretty quick and reliable value transfer procedures. Thank you. And this is our teams in Queens, in addition to Frederick and Francisco collaborating in this work. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Samuel. Really valuable input. We will have the occasion to discuss a little bit later with you and with the rest of the speakers. Now it's time for Mauro Masiero from the University of Padua. Mauro, are you there? Okay, we can hear you, Mauro. You will need to turn on your mic, please.
sorry, it was not working. Hello, can you hear me now? Yeah.
Go ahead. Yeah, everything's perfect. Go ahead.
Thank you very much, Mario. Good morning, everybody. So thanks for inviting me to give this speech. My name is Mauro Masero, and I'm associate professor in forest policy and economics at University of Padua in Italy. And I will deliver this presentation that has been developed in cooperation with my colleague Luisa Eusebia, which is deepening some of the theoretical concepts and we have been hearing since now with regard to a specific case study, actually a couple of case studies in Northern Italy. So we will be analyzing some ecosystem service assessment with regard to nature-based solutions for river basin management in a couple of cases in Northern Italy. And the first case indeed, these are the two cases you can see in Northern Italy, which is Life Brenta and Bioclima. There's a third one that we are tackling within the project that won't be mentioned today, which is the Appennino Tosco-Emiliano. So let me start with the Brenta case study, this one you can see. I will bring you in the northeastern Italy, between Padova and Vicenza provinces, in an area which is the middle Brenta River area. We are speaking about 56 kilometers of riverine environment, which is falling within a Natura 2000 site, which is called the Riverbed and Wetlands of Brenta River. And what is interesting about this area, and here you can see a picture about it, is that this is a key area for the provision of drinking water. Indeed, in particular, Camazzole Lake, which is the lake you can see on the left, provides tap water to 3 provinces and about 1/3 of the total regional population, meaning 1.5 million people. And this is water which is actually being extracted from the underground, so it's from the water table. And on top of that, the area is also being challenged by severe pressures. This is a densely or relatively densely populated area, which is also hosting quite intense farming activities, in particular livestock, but also corn cropping. It's an area that is quite popular locally also for recreation activities, especially during summer weekends. And in particular, after one person was posting on the social media pictures about this area, calling that the Veneto Caribbeans and popularizing it a lot. And historically, it's also an area which is subject to gravel extraction activities, which are also putting pressures and impacts. So in order to try managing all this area and its resources, despite many challenges, a specific project was established that is the Life Brenta 2030 project, where a broad set of stakeholders were involved, from farmers to visitors to users of the integrated water management system, in order to, first of all, identify and discuss problems and criticism with a focus on the integrated water management system and the conservation of the Natura 2000 sites. And then these problems and criticism were discussed by a technical expert panel in order to identify possible solutions, with the main emphasis on the implementation of nature-based solutions to cope with these problems and issues. And from this discussion between local stakeholders facing problems, technical experts identifying possible solutions, we came out with a short list of possible nature-based solutions, actually 3 of them, which I'll show you in a while, in order to try overcoming these problems. And we analyzed the technical feasibility, we assessed the potentials in terms of ecosystem services delivery, and analyzed different possible scenarios for their implementation. As I told you, we identify a short list of nature-based solutions, actually 3 of them, which is the switching from traditional to conservation agriculture and the development of constructing wetlands, as well as forest infiltration areas. And for the project area, we came out with suitability maps, like the ones you see on the slides, where different areas were mapped in terms of suitability classes for each of the MBS, from not suitable to highly suitable for them. And just for you to have a better idea about forest infiltration areas that maybe are the less known or intuitive among the free nature-based solutions I'm speaking about. Here you have an example. This is an already existing forest infiltration area, which is not within the project area, but very close by, and that was realized with a previous project. It's a small forest area, 2.5 hectares, that has been developed replacing former corn fields, and it is helping infiltrating every year about 1 million cubic meters of water, besides providing additional benefits in terms of biodiversity conservation, in terms also of provisioning services through beekeeping, as well as cultural services as the forest is hosting a kindergarten. So we defined different scenarios for the implementation of the MBS. Besides the baseline, so the situation as it is right now, we identified 3 alternative scenarios, each basically maximizing in terms of suitability the 3 nature-based solutions individually. So one just for conservation agriculture, one for the wetlands, and one for the forest infiltration areas, and a couple of mixed or blended scenarios. The first one maximizing forest infiltration areas, that is using all the suitable or very suitable areas for the forest and the rest for the wetlands, keeping forest conservation agriculture fixed. And the second mixed scenario, which is maximizing wetlands, that is using for wetland developments the suitable and the very suitable areas, and then the rest for the other MBS. And we modeled these different scenarios by means of INVEST models. INVEST is a suite of models for ecosystem service assessment in biophysical and economic terms developed by the Natural Capital Project, which is Stanford University and WWF. When it comes in particular to the economic assessment, we integrated some of the INVEST models with additional analysis. And in particular, we were focusing our assessments on 3 ecosystem services, that is water infiltration, carbon sequestration, and habitat quality. For water infiltration economic assessment, we used a cost-based approach. That is, we consider what would be the cost of developing alternative man-made infrastructures, that is basins and wells, to infiltrate the same amount of water that the nature-based solutions might infiltrate. For carbon sequestration, we relied on the price market for carbon credits by analyzing existing markets for this commodity, basically. And for habitat quality, we made reference to benefit transfer by making use of pre-existing studies on habitat restoration activities and adapting them to the specific case. Just for you to have an idea, I'm just sharing one example about detailed assessments we made, and that's for the case of water infiltration capacity. We were calculating through the INVEST model an index from 0 to 1, where 0 means no infiltration and 1 meaning all water is being infiltrated. And here are the results for the baseline and some of the different scenarios, that is the 3 with the single MBS solutions and 1 of the blended scenarios. And as you can see from the bar plots below, basically all alternative scenarios but wetlands tend to perform better compared to the baseline, and in particular excluding the wetlands, some of the alternative scenarios perform way better, and forest infiltration areas and mixed scenarios are those performing the best. Summarizing the findings, here are, oh sorry, something went wrong. Okay, so here are the results summarized with regards to the 3 different ecosystem services indexed to the base. Yeah.
Excuse me, I'm not seeing the screen. I don't know if anyone is seeing it. I lost your image.
Okay.
No.
Perfect.
Is it
I'm
okay?
sorry.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. No, it's okay. Thank you.
No problem. So here is a summary for the different ecosystem services, considering the baseline as index to 100. So it's a relative difference compared to the baseline. And as you can see, basically the forest infiltration areas are the single MBS that is performing the best for carbon and water infiltration, and wetlands when it comes to habitat quality. At the same time, we have the first mix scenario, so mix one, which is in general performing the best for each of the ecosystem services. In economic terms, we performed a cost efficiency analysis considering a 30 years long period and the interest rate of 3%. And basically, this would be, for instance, the annual cost in euros per cubic meter of infiltrated wood or ton of sequestered CO2. And as you can see, basically, the conservation agriculture would be the most efficient solution, but it is also the less effective. So we won't be able to, let's say, face the challenges and provide the desired targets by just relying on conservation agriculture. So in the end, the most effective and efficient solutions are, again, forest infiltration areas as a standalone MBS, and the first blended scenario when we combine different MBS together. Moving to the second case, so to the bioclima case study, and specifically to the Serio River case study. So let's move slightly on the left. Let me say a few words about Bioclima Initiative, which is the broader framework within which the case study is being developed. Bioclima is a public-private initiative that has been promoted by Lombardy region, so the public government of the region where Milan is, in cooperation with private entities to provide funding to restore and improve protected areas within the region. Basically, a call was launched for a project to restore and improve these protected areas under the conditionality that funding was to be covered at least for each project for 30% by private funds, as well as under the conditionality that the project were to be then independently verified for their capacity to deliver ecosystem services by making use of forest stewardship standards for forest management. And within this general framework, several projects were realized. I will just be focusing on one of them, which is the Serio River within the Parco del Serio. So it's a regional protected area along this river. And what we did is similar. What we are actually doing, because this is still ongoing, is similar to what I was presenting for the case of the Brenta River. So we analyze the context in order to define the baseline scenario. We identify possible alternative management scenarios and ecosystem services associated to them and to be estimated. And then we assessed and valued ecosystem services in order then to identify the possible solution also to set up payments to compensate for these ecosystem services. And these are the scenarios that we are considering right now. That is, besides the baseline, we are considering a free-flowing condition for the river. We are considering river mobility with land expropriation from the private owners. We are considering a scenario where nature-based solutions are being integrated within the area, so new interventions, and a scenario where just gray infrastructures, so man-made infrastructures in particular to reduce flood risks, are being considered. And here I will be just presenting some results about the baseline and scenario 1 and 3, just for a matter of time constraints. Also, in this case, we used Invest as a modeling tool to analyze the different scenarios, the different cases, and the different ecosystem services. We relied on spatial data and different statistical data, for instance, with regard to agricultural production, in order then to assess For now, ecosystem services, which is the same three we saw for the case of Brenta Riva: carbon, water flow regulation, and habitat quality, plus agricultural production. We are also considering to include and starting to include cultural services in terms of recreation. And a few preliminary results. This is, for instance, the baseline when it comes to carbon storage. And you see results in terms of total stock in the business as usual scenario and under scenario 1. And you can see from the total stock that there is about 3% increase when moving to the free flowing case for the river. And if we compare in detail the two cases, indeed also in economic terms, actually we have a difference in terms of increased carbon stock value under the first scenario, which is around 12 million euros per year. And this is done by assuming an average CO2 price per ton of CO2 equivalent of about 30 euros per ton, that is per credit. When we compared the baseline or business as usual and the first scenario according to the total ecosystem services we considered, however, we can notice that there is a gap. That is, the total value diminishes, which is the red bar you can see on the graph. And this is because of the free flowing of the river. Some farmed areas are being lost due to floods and erosion, and so crop production is going to reduce. So we are facing a clear trade-off between private goods and provisioning services, that is agricultural crops, and public goods, meaning in this case in particular the ecosystem services we are considering. Let me jump to the third scenario, which is the MBS scenario. As I told you, we considered different types of MBS and different scenarios, and here you have an overview. So we consider wetlands and forest infiltration areas again, and the first two scenarios in the MBS case maximize each of the two MBS individually. In the other cases, we have mixed scenarios, the first one giving priority to forest infiltration areas and the rest being left to wetlands, and vice versa for scenario number 4. And just sharing briefly some preliminary results of our ongoing analysis. As you can see, the scenario which maximizes wetlands is the one that maximizes water flow regulation, and is also the one with the total highest economic value by considering carbon and water flow regulation, while forest infiltration areas tend to maximize the contribution to the carbon stock, also in terms of value, and is less, let's say, performative when it comes to water flow regulation. So my take-home messages from these two cases would be that besides being preliminary exercises, at least in the case of the Serio River, while for Brenta it is already quite consolidated, they need to be further expanded to include also other ecosystem services. And in this perspective, for us, is being really a key aspect, the close cooperation we are having with the local land managers and other actors, including for testing on the field some nature-based solutions. And this is showing us that nature-based solutions shall be designed and implemented not as a one-size-fits-all solution, but they really need to be tailored and locally adapted to be as effective as possible. Based at least on the Brenta River experience, and we will see in the case of the Serio River, we can conclude that most likely blended solutions tend to be more effective and efficient in delivering multiple ecosystem services and balancing multiple benefits. Of course, all this shall be framed within current policies and coming soon strategies. Let me mention just two of them. We are now in the framework of the Nature Restoration Law and specifically of national restoration plans. We are, of course, dialoguing with Italian institutions in charge of this, but we are also considering possible links to the carbon removals and carbon farming regulation. Of course, we shall not, besides public policies, forget about private interventions. And indeed, in the case of Brenta, we already tested the inclusion of additional payments within the water tariff to support the nature-based solutions. And in the case of Serio River, private sponsorship for interventions in protected areas supporting the nature-based solutions we are considering. So we will go on with this assessment and we will be happy to share more results when ready. With that, I will stop my presentation and remain available for any question you may have.
Thank you, Mauro. Thank you. Really interesting presentation. Thanks a lot. So now I will ask Francisco to join me. We will start with the open discussion with all of you. I will share my screen so you can see some BIOFIN information.
So, hello everyone. My name is Francisco, and I will now try with Mario to somehow guide this open discussion part before the closing remarks of Andrea. And to do that, we already have some questions, mainly from Philippe at the chat. Feel free to leave questions there. If we don't have time, we will certainly get back to you with some replies. So it may not be today, but it will be certainly in the future. So you can certainly do that.
Now, excuse me, Francisco. Just a small comment. Our idea is that if possible, we want to, and if you want, we want to see your faces and to hear your voices when you are asking questions. So, for example, Philippe, if you want, I don't know if you can try to turn on your camera and your mic. And go ahead with your first question. And for the rest of the people, you can leave your question in the chat or raise your hand, and we will give the floor to you in the order that you appear with your hands and your comments in the chat. So, Philippe, if you want to start, I think it's the best way.
Thanks for giving me the floor. So my question was a bit related to, let's say, the overall assumption somehow that is behind these presentations that have been made, that economic valuation and economic value can actually lead to financing opportunities and actually public financing opportunities. So I'm an environmental economist, so I've been doing this similar type of evaluation. And that's why I'm also aware of sometimes the limitations, at least that I see in France, of the impact of these economic valuation on actual public investment choices. But this is my experience. So, but I would like to ask the people that intervene whether the results that they have generated and the economic value that they have found in their assessments, do they feel, or in these assessments or in previous assessment, do they feel that they have actually led or prompted public decision makers to actually invest in some of the in the protection measures or environmental investments that are necessary, and also in addition to that, let's say the distribution of the benefits in the different type of ecosystem services, did they somehow also lead to pointing at specific funding opportunities in proportion somehow to the value that they generate for these different type of ecosystem services?
I would say that for all of the speakers, when you want, just turn on your mic and your camera and go with the answer that you think is appropriate for the comments of the participants. And Francisco, now you can go ahead.
Yes, I guess Frederick is already turning his mic on, so we're very glad to hear from him.
I can begin with, it's a really good question, and it's a sensitive question in a way, right? We're talking about all these things. Do they really actually at the end have any impact? Is a very good question. question. So when it comes to my specific case, that's way too soon to talk. So let me say a little bit about the experience from the Swedish setting. I think the best example on the usefulness of economic evaluation approaches in the Swedish setting would be in transport and transport infrastructure. And I think that's fairly true for many different countries. I don't really know why, but I think the use of these methods for transport infrastructure, for example, and transport, they are very valuable and they are actually used. In other settings, it's much less of a success, I would say. But they are being done for regulatory impact analysis, etc. But it is a good question, and it's also partly a justification for BIOFIN, sort of to help us to actually get both public blended finance and private finance to react on these values. But we are just starting on that, and I think that's it. So more a good question. I have some examples, but I also have a number of examples where they are not used or don't have an impact. Let me just add one thing. Well, since it was silent, I think payment for ecosystem services might be a case in general also that is an example where these methods to some, at least have been sort of justified for creating a market for these values. Let me put it like that. It's not that they're used, but it's a good justification for creating market for these values. Now I'll shut up.
If I may just jump in and just follow up on Fredrik's. So I also take the chance to reply to Chiara that was posing a question in the chat. Thanks, Chiara, for asking this. Actually, in the case of the two cases I was presenting, I think that there is a link with then a practical implementation of the field of this economic assessment. So it's not just an academic exercise, in the sense that in the case of the Brenta River, besides estimating the impacts of the nature-based solutions we were considering and are already implementing, we also performed a contingent valuation study to identify the willingness to pay by the users of the integrated water management system to dedicate part of the water tariff to the development of these nature-based solutions. And to our knowledge, this was the first case in Italy where, through discussion with the stakeholders and even with the national authority called ARERA, which is in charge of defining the tariff system, this was then put in practice. Right now, starting from 2 years ago, part of the tariff is being managed and dedicated to nature-based solutions interventions in the area. In the case of the Serio River, it's slightly different because it's a protected area, formally protected area. So there's a park manager. So in that case, all activities go through this manager. And so far, the only, let's say, solution that was found was to attract private sponsors by companies, private companies willing to invest in the park in order to generate positive benefits, positive impacts. They can either use to offset their impacts or, in more general terms, for their CSR policies. So this is another specific example of practical implementation. But yes, I agree with Fredrik that in other cases, these are just exercises that might even stay there for many reasons without implications.
Thank you, Mauro. By the way, Chiara, you want to turn on your mic and add something to the discussion? Please feel free to do it. Okay, so you say thank you, but if you want to add something, please feel free to do it. Yeah, if not, I think that Philip, you also made a question for Samuel in the chat. Maybe you want to get back to it and give the floor to Samuel if you can go ahead with that, because the question related to the discount, I think it was already answered by Fredrik in the chat. But I think that you left another question for someone, if I'm right.
Yeah, well, I think the question was a bit another way of putting the same question somehow. Is that but it especially struck me that the cost-benefit ratio were particularly high in this study on the lake. So I was wondering, with such striking figures, did it prompt or initiate a political discussion on the lake protection measures in the future?
So I would say this is actually like the cost may be underestimated, because this is like a lower bound of the value, because because we are used to marginal abatement cost, and if it depends on how the abatement cost curvature. So when the quantity increase for so much, then the price should be, the marginal abatement cost will be at the increasing order most likely. So the total abatement cost I just is like a minimum necessary. It may be much higher than this, but this is like a preliminary indicator that this the benefit cost ratio is high enough for acting something. And actually, for the harmful algal bloom in Loch Ness is a really political question, and in Northern Ireland, and I'm sure that even without this striking figures, there is a lot of political interest working on this issue actually.
Thank you, Samuel. Thank you. Well, for all the members of the Watch Network and the Knowledge Hub experts that are joining us today, please feel free to bring to the table your specific context or your specific problems or challenges that you're facing relating to the economic valuation of the actions or activities that you are developing, and let's try to connect this to the expertise of the BIOFIN project people. And if not, I don't know if Francesco, you have some topic to bring to the table. Meanwhile.
Yes, I mean, you are always free to contact us. You have our contacts here as shared by Mario. So feel free to contact us whenever you prefer with questions, and we will be very glad to follow up on those. Also, I would like to say something related, because probably you saw a lot of results from the different case studies, and since not all of you probably are aware of the methodologies used, and because I mean the skill set is not is somehow demanded of a high level, I will ask, how can exactly can we transfer the results or the methodologies to other case studies? So if I have, for example, a lake in Portugal that I want to apply or at least to calculate the abatement cost or the or understand how exactly I can apply the different benefit transfer or preference statement methodologies, should I be careful in different situations? And I think that from this perspective, we can easily say, for example, if for the case of Frederick or even any case, if how exactly you would suggest other, let's say, interest or other stakeholders to promote, let's say, similar studies, somehow highlighting the some warrants, I would say.
Lots of things, Frederick. Yeah, go ahead.
Was that a specific? I didn't get that it was specifically for me. I'm sorry.
No, it was very general. It's just
Yeah.
to apply to the case study and the methodologies themselves, since they are not very easy to replicate just that way.
Yeah, and I think that what I think you can get a lot of inspiration from what Sam present, because I think in most of the cases you are not going to do individual studies yourself. You are going to rely on benefit transfer methods, which is a whole science in itself. So I wouldn't sort of be recommending people to do individual studies of each individual nature-based solution project. The problem, though, is that, so I do work on climate change as well. Valuing the climate is actually very easy compared to valuing water quality, biodiversity, etc. So it is much more tricky. But I would consider sort of thinking of the benefit transfer approach as much as possible.
Thank you, Frederick. Thank you, Frederick. There's a question from Lina Heisen. Lina, if you want to turn your mic on your camera and make the question yourself, feel free to do it. And if not, I will read it.
Okay, yes, hello. Thank you for the interesting presentations. I was just wondering how the suitability maps you showed are made for the 3 nature-based solutions. Is it based on like physical layers or like soil maps and things like that?
Yes, exactly. Thanks, Lena, for asking. Indeed, we used specially defined data for defining the maps. Specific approaches were used for each of the MBS. In the case, for instance, of the forest infiltration areas, we used soil maps, soil permeability maps. Then we used calculated closeness also to channels, because it makes sense to have these forests if they are at a close distance from channels. And so we combine them in order to identify the different classes. Happy to share more in case you can email me and I can share more details in case.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Lina. Thank you, Mauro. That's another interesting question by Felipe in the chat. I can bring it to everyone, and let's see if some of you can jump to it. And he's saying that that would be interesting to consider when using the economic evaluation, the thing on how we communicate the uncertainty and the trade-offs that it may have on the scientific validity of our work and the potential impact on the decision makers. I don't know how the speakers see this thing.
You're asking all the good questions. I mean, I agree 100%. This is, for example, in our study, we took away uncertainty completely, right? For good reasons. Uncertainty is likely going to be an important part here. And once you bring in the uncertainty, you will bring in the risk attitudes and the risk perceptions of the actors. And that can probably have quite substantial effects on the analysis. There has been some work in stated preference, I know, on sort of how to communicate uncertainty and whether sort of introducing uncertainty into the picture, how that affects the responses. I agree. I think way too little has been done on that. So a positive answer in terms of good question. I don't have a simple answer on how it would play out, but I agree.
If I may just follow up on that. Yeah, I mean, any estimation is uncertain by definition. So that's absolutely clear. And we all need to be very much aware of that. And different ways to deal with that is to, for instance, deal with sensitivity analysis that make different risk levels visible to decision makers, policy makers. So using different discount rates, different cost levels, etc., etc. So this is one possibility. And as I stated from the very beginning, being very clear with the different stakeholders that this is not the true value, the value, but it's an estimation. So it has to be considered carefully.
Thank you, Mauro. Yeah, we have a question in the chat by Nicole Lacona. I don't know, Nicole, if you want to turn on your mic and make it yourself, let me know. And if not, I will read it.
Yeah, hello. I'm a generalist and I only listen frequently, but I was wondering, it was very interesting when Frederick told about how they did these questions on willingness to pay. If you actually want to do this in a project, I think my politicians would be concerned if we use this method, because this would, how do you explain it to all these layers of people with other education, that this is a sort of valuation method, or is it also linked to actual possible policy of raising tariffs? And how do you cope with this? Because it's a very interesting method, which I think we could use it, but I think that my politicians would be against using this method because of resistance and of the sensitivity of participation processes on local level. So I wondered, how did you actually do this, and what did this trigger, and how do you frame this? And
super good question. So first of all, I would never ask a politician to give inputs on my because I agree they would probably react to this, right? So let me just why am I using a tax? Well, I'm using a tax because it's mandatory, so everybody would have to pay. So you don't bring in this answer, someone should pay, but not me, etc. So with a tax, you're saying everybody who's paying a tax should pay. So that's sort of a good argument for using a tax at all. Am I telling the respondents that are answering the survey that this is just, it's not going to happen? No, I'm not. But I'm also not telling them this is for sure going to happen. So I'm saying, imagine that this is a situation, right? And I want them to play along and think that this is, in a way, will have consequences. We use the word consequentiality. Respondents should think that this will have potential consequences. So you or I will bring our results to the decision makers and show them these are the results, and that can affect the outcome. I don't want them to think, oh, this will for sure actually happen, that I will have to pay an increased tax. Having said that, you saw that I showed what are the reasons for why people said no. And one of the most important reasons why people said no is that I don't want to pay higher taxes. I think taxes are too high. We should do something else with our tax money, etc., right? And the problem with that response is that they are reacting to the tax and not to the environmental good. So having a tax as an instrument has its potential problems as well. But in general, I think the guidance from the literature is that it's good to have a tax because it's mandatory. We know everybody's going to have to pay. We know that politicians will be upset with this if they tell, but I would simply say, it's easy for me to say than for you perhaps, I would ignore that sort of and say there are good reasons for still using the tax as a payment vehicle.
I remember the ignoring part.
Take that as a take-home message.
Yeah, thank you, Frederick, and thank you, Nicole, for the question. And also thank you, Frederick, for the paper that you mentioned. I will share the complete link for the audience to be able to download and check it if they want. Don't know if there's any more questions in the room for our speakers today. Yeah, looks like we have one from George. George, please, if you want, turn on your mic and go ahead with your question. George, are you there?
No, George is just recommending paper.
Okay, good. Yeah, I will share it then. Okay, thank you, George, for the contribution. Okay, any more questions?
Yes, I just put something in the chat about a paper explicitly incorporating uncertainty into willingness to pay in an economic experiment by myself and one of our PhD students, Chloe McCallum. It's published in the European Review of Agricultural Economics quite recently.
Thanks a lot for the contribution. I will also add a link for the people to be able to easily access your paper. Any other questions in the room? because if not, I think we are in a good time to give the floor to Andrea Rubini from Water Europe, that I think is ready. He has already joined us, and he will go with the final remarks for the event. But before that, yes, a big thank you to all the guys from BIOFIN. I think you did a great job presenting the work that you are doing in this amazing project. I think you are doing some very valuable things, and I think that our networks and the Water for All partnership would really benefit from your knowledge and expertise. I hope that it was really helpful for all of them. And as we said, in the following days, we'll have news about the second webinar that we'll have in early June. We'll share with you the final date and the agenda of this event in the following days. And now, Andrea, I think I already give you permission to share your screen if you want. And I think that you don't have the material, but just to connect your camera and mic and go to your final remarks.
Many thanks, Mario. And well, I mean, I also join you, and I mean, in thanking, I mean, the speakers and the organizers of this webinar that highlighted, I mean, the matter that water represents quite, maybe the most important objective and challenge as well, I mean, for the future investment in Europe and beyond Europe. I would like also to thank, I mean, the BIOFIN-EU project for providing this opportunity and for gathering, I mean, important speakers with important examples, I mean, on going, I mean, from the role of the economic valuation and I mean, in terms of why we should finance, I mean, we should support water-related investment, I mean, up to identifying, well, I mean, the real value of working and investing in water. In the end, I mean, this points, I mean, into one direction, which is investing in water means to give and to highlight the true value of water for our societies and our economy. It's not by chance that the European Union as a water resilience strategy that was, as you know, published, I mean, in June 2025, which gives, I mean, this priority, establishing, supporting, promoting, and achieving a water smart economy. And I would say a water smart society and economy. In order to do that, we need to invest in water. I mean, recently, rather at the end of April, Water Europe organized one of its flagship events. It was called Water Market Europe. That was focused on, well, I mean, one subdomain of the water sector that was on digital twins. So, I mean, management, water management through digital twins, artificial intelligence for the water sector, and data governance. And the issue was, in the end, beyond, I mean, the market perspective and beyond the need for deploying the innovation was, I mean, at large, looking at why water is not invested enough and why we should invest in water. So this was, I mean, quite, I mean, an important debate, which, as I said, I mean, on the one hand, it is mirrored in the water resilience strategy of the European Union, in which there is, I mean, a large importance given to accelerating new financing models for the water sector. And just to give you an idea, I mean, why, I mean, water will be in the coming years, maybe, I mean, the most important sector in which investment will be necessary is the matter that if you look at the insurance claims in 2025, and about climate related issues in 2025, approximately 67% of those claims were water related. So it means that if you look at the majority of the claims on climate related issues are on water. But at the same time, only 50% of those claims were covered by the insurance companies. So it means that the perspective of the water sector is still to be built, explored, and constructed around the capacity of our society of covering the risks, I mean, of the sector. And in order to do this, I mean, we really need, on the one hand, political consistency and common consensus on how to invest in water from the public point of view, but at the same time also how to involve, I mean, the private sector and the private capital in water investment. So I think that at the end, I mean, our overall reflection, and there's many thanks, I mean, for the bright examples of today, and the lesson learned, and the expertise which is put into these projects. Our overall reflection should be on, I mean, how the economic approach, evaluation approach, can really strengthen financing and prioritization and the implementation of water-related and nature-positive investments in order to really support the European water resilience strategy. And it's important, I mean, to support from the financing point of view the strategy, because, I mean, we can have as much as good intent and willingness to work, but we need also to look at the economic value that water can bring to our society, which is basic for agriculture, cities, and industries. I don't have anything else, I mean, to add to this. I think that the speakers today have been able really to bring, I mean, substantial examples and a lot of food for brain for the upcoming pathways in order to support the achievement of the water resilience strategy. And I think that this is also a good opportunity also to ask you, I mean, to save the date, I mean, to the speakers and to the audience, because thanks, I mean, to the organizers of this event, we are going to organize another meeting, I mean, on the 26th of May from 10 to 12, which will be the climate-ready cities and regions, embedding water and living labs into local adaptation strategies, which is also important from the point of view of looking at how many water and living labs have been able, I mean, to adapt strategies and at the same time, I mean, to identify potential financing pathways in order to make this for real. Once again, I mean, many thanks to all of you for the time, for the inputs, for the insights. And I mean, see you soon, I mean, on for other webinars and other opportunities for enhancing collaboration in the water sector. Thank you so much.
Thanks a lot, Andrea. Thank you again to all the presenters today. Thank you to all the audience for the attention and for the contributions in the chat. And I hope that you all enjoy it. And as we said, and as Andrea said, we'll wait for you on the next webinar on the 26th of May, which is one of the webinars that is organized by Water Europe. And regarding the second part of this webinar, you will have soon news for the organization of this event, which will take place in early June. So thanks a lot to everyone, and see you in our next event.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Thank you.
Bye.